Hey guys, this is Battleground Investor. I got some great news. If you're a Palantir fan, if you're invested in the stock, or even if you're thinking about investing in the stock, the ARK Innovation funds have basically double, triple, quadrupled down. Actually, technically, they've invested 25% more into Palantir in the form of the number of shares than they've had ever before after this most recent Q2 2021 earnings report. So the earnings report was so good, it gave them enough confidence to increase their holdings post the earnings. And what's interesting is it's not just in the traditional funds that we see Palantir at the ARK Innovation funds, the ARK K, the ARK K and the ARK W funds traditionally are invested in Palantir. Why is this important? Well, if you track famous and successful fund managers, be it portfolio fund managers at like a hedge fund or an ETF, an actively exchange traded fund, it can kind of give you some assessment of what they're thinking about without really scouring their research notes, etc. You're just looking at the hard facts. Do they buy? Do they sell? And then you try to derive a little bit of information from what they're thinking, because the marketplace is always looking at things from many different angles, trying to understand different people's opinions and why they're doing things can help you maybe see something you didn't maybe see in a stock, even one that you are very deeply researching. So ARK Innovation Funds is ran by Cathy Woods, very good fund manager, and she's been on top of her game, over 600% return in some of her funds, in around that range in the last in the year to date, not this year actually, but in the previous year. This year she's probably down quite a bit because we've had a big hit in terms of tech stocks and the multiple compression on the valuation for those tech stocks. However, that said, in terms as a long-term investor, she's very good. And I'm a long-term investor, so I like to look at long-term investors, what they're doing as well. So to get to it, I'll share my screen with you, and it's really exciting to see how much potential is in her mind for this company, because she not only bought 25% more shares, but she had a large holding, and we'll take a look at her existing large holding. It's primarily spread in RK and ARK W, which stands for the flagship ARK Innovation Fund for the RK. And that's at 15 now. This is tied for the highest that it's ever been. But just be aware, she has over 49 firms that she's invested in this fund itself. It's very well diversified within tech. So it's not a diversified fund, but within tech, she's got 49 stocks. And here you see it's around 2.68% of her fund holdings. So that's a large percent for her fund. She's very bullish. To compare, her largest holding at 10.62% is Tesla. To go now, we look at ARK W, or other fund that's invested in it. That's also got a relatively large holding for herself, because just to give you perspective. Some of them she just cleared out at 0, but she's got 0.11, or they're not cleared. They're still there. It's just so small that it's not picked up at even the 0.00 percentage level. They're even smaller. They're just rounding it to 0. It's that small. But if we take a look at it, you see Robinhood, she added at 39. But she's had an investment here in Palantir at 17th ranking, around 2.17%. And for me, I really believe in Palantir. I think Palantir is long-term great data analytics, data integration analytics, and AI play. Kind of similar to the NVIDIA of semiconductors, right? But in the software space. That's the way I'm looking at Palantir. It's going to be used so frequently in so many different applications and sectors. But UiPath is another similar company, but they do it in a different way, more of a immediate robot process automation, a more simpler form of artificial intelligence. So I believe holding UiPath and Palantir in a similar kind of basket. And she's kind of done the same thing. She's got UiPath and Palantir exactly in a similar basket. But to move on, where she's added it now, this is phenomenal. And I see why she's done that. She's really broadened her mind to understand, excuse me, she's really realized, she's already got an amazing broad mind. I didn't mean to say that, but she's realized like what an amazing potential this has in multiple technology spaces, in different spaces. And we'll take a look now at why she's added it. Arc F she's added, not a large one. It's very small, relatively speaking, but it's there. She's added it at 44. And you're going to start, anytime you add a position, you want to start small. This is just general basic investment due diligence. You want to, as you build more confidence, you add and add more as it's going up or even going down, so long as you're very well aware of the macro trend, why something is going down, and it's not really due to the company. And that's like today's technology firms are all getting multiple compression. Very few software firms are not. Unless they're like, the FANGs, the Facebooks and the Googles. So Palantir here is at 0.25% of her overall fund. I expect it to go up because, again, I said UiPath is very similar, and it's 14th here, around 2.5%. And it's at RK and RW around 2.5%. Where I believe it's going to go up. There is going to be, the bottom line here, to not go any further, the bottom line is, if you guys wanted to know, is there going to be significant buying pressure from here on out in the short term? I think there can very well be. And I'm defining short term a little bit more longer than most people. Say in the next 6 months to the end of the year. There really may be, because once she's added it to all of these funds, she's going to be adding more stocks in these funds from Palantir. So she's going to be building up a position in these other funds, because these other funds are basically independent funds from their flagship fund and from their internet fund, the ARCW fund. So we can see this grow. And but just so you guys are aware, this is not something that's just that there's just buying pressure. There's a lot of people who are selling this thing down. Like Wall Street doesn't like this. I mean, they're trying to short it. Although the short interest is really low, though. So technically, they're just not hot on it. That's really what's going on. And Alex Karp has a major 10-year option period expiration now that's been coming to an end this year, and he has to sell. He has to execute on these auctions, exercise these options, and basically that creates a tax liability for him. And then he has to pay that tax liability. And since he's paid mainly in the form of shares that he gets from those options, he's going to have to sell those shares. And so that forces a lot of sell side pressure, a lot of pressure onto that stock downwards. So she's buttressing against it, and he's selling down because he needs to pay those tax liabilities. But that ends by the end of this year. So knowing how Cathy Wood's been buying and selling, she basically doesn't mind buying into weakness. So we should see her probably be buying all the way till the end of this year. And that's going to hold this stock up, I think, along with the fact that earnings are going to be gangbusters, and it's just going to be doing so well. There's also another great thing about this company, but to keep this video short, it really helps reduces costs and increases revenues. Every company needs a form of Palantir, just to use their really AI and data analytics, especially if it could be applied to medium-sized and one day maybe small-sized startups that are growing fast. They're already getting into that. But let's look at the other funds that they're holding it in, and you see that RQ, the Autonomous Vehicle Fund, is also invested in it, again starting in a small position at around 0.5%. But where's it going to go? I think it's going to go very high, around UiPath high, 5.28%. That 5%, that 2.5 to 5% is very important. I see companies like UiPath, Palantir, these companies that have multi-sector technological benefits to their clients are going to be very important to them. And that's why it's going to be bought in by so many different fund managers, including Cathy Woods. Cathy Woods might be early for many, but she is definitely the canary in the coal mine, so to speak, but in a positive sense. This is a really solid company. So the other, to give you an example of this, and maybe just to finish out here, with ArcX, you have, this is their space fund, basically. They're investing in companies that have a benefit for space. And you see Lockheed Martin, L3 Harris Technology, Kratos Defense Security, which amazing. They're dealing with the autonomous wingman and Skyborg program, supporting the United States Air Force and the military in that area. And Dassault Systems, a French company. But anyway, so what they have here, they started that position off at 38 at the bottom, as they should in the Class A shares. And excuse me, and we see it at 0.25%. But where could it be? Again, we see UiPath here at around 16. Why not? And to be honest, I think UiPath is going to grow because they have a lockup coming up in the next few weeks. So when that lockup ends, she's obviously going to be buying into that. I mean, that's the most obvious thing. You're not going to buy everything before the lockup expiration, where there's going to be a flood of shares by insiders who finally get out. You know, because honestly, you don't want all of your wealth in one stock. And a lot of the people, early employees, founders, etc., they need some kind of diversification. We're diversifying our portfolios, or at least you should if you haven't. But you should be investing in things you believe in, and the volatility amount is acceptable to your risk appetite. And that's what she's been doing. And I think she's going to do it where even UiPath goes up, and you'll see Palantir going up alongside that area. Because this is really the operating system of enterprises, like they say. I really believe that it has amazing potential. And obviously, I'm not your financial advisor, so I can't really help you understand your risk tolerance. If this is the right stock for you, you know, this is something you're going to have to speak with your own advisors, if you have any, or find one, or do your own due diligence. Ultimately, I'm bullish on the stock. I believe in it. And this gives you an example of, let's find the investor relations for Palantir, kind of what led her to understand a little bit more and to buy into this stock more than ever before. The example I will provide is from their most recent investor relations. Excuse me, for some reason it's not pulling up because it's the 2021. So when we take a look at their earnings report, they made a video. Let me just jump ahead.
To provide insights.
So this is going to introduce you like why it could be in the space fund.
Thank you, Rodney. Before diving into results, I'd like to share a bit of our latest product innovation, something that we deployed at the Global Information Dominance Experiments Guide 3 last month. We call it the Meta Constellation, and it's radically changing how satellites are tasked, the latency of collection, and it's creating a fundamental link in that AI-enabled decision chain. Overnight, we orchestrated a meta constellation of 237 satellites by working with an array of commercial space companies. These companies, they've been deploying constellations of hyperspectral, radar, and ELIT sensors into orbit. And we are putting all of that power directly into the hands of the front lines, empowering the edge. It's one of the largest collaborative sensor constellations ever to see operational use. Here to show us more is Shannon, who has led our work defining and building the AI-enabled decision chain.
Palantir's Meta Constellation software harnesses the power of growing satellite constellations, deploying AI into space to provide insights to decision makers here on Earth. Our Meta Constellation integrates with existing satellites, optimizing hundreds of orbital sensors and AI models, and allowing users to ask time-sensitive questions across the entire planet. Important questions like, where are there indicators of wildfires? Or how are climate changes affecting crop productivity? And when and where are naval fleets conducting operations? Meta Constellation pushes Palantir's edge AI technology to a new frontier. As we all know, submarines present threats to the US and its allies. And to protect strategic interests, allied forces need to track every submarine's deployment around the world. And at the forefront of this challenge are anti-submarine warfare officers. They turn to Meta Constellation to monitor ports across the Pacific. Let me show you a little bit about what that looks like. In response to allied monitoring requests, Meta Constellation dynamically determines which orbiting sensors are available. Integrated through Palantir, the constellations then collaboratively schedule coverage over each port. Meanwhile, Apollo for Edge AI assigns tailored AI micromodels to each satellite. Running on board the satellite, the models will automatically find submarines and stream those insights directly to users. With the mission planned, Apollo automatically reconfigures each of the satellites, pushing the right micromodels into orbit.
Wow.
And as a software payload on board, Palantir's Edge AI platform connects complex satellite subsystems to models, integrating new AI with the hardware. The best part, my favorite part, is that as it orbits, the Edge AI platform hot swaps the right micromodels in, rapidly reconfiguring the satellite. The models process imagery, they detect submarines, geolocate them, and then determine any movement since the last collection pass, all in under a second. When the AI sees a submarine movement, that insight is directly downlinked to allied forces as the satellite passes overhead, and the anti-submarine warfare officers are notified in just minutes, empowering them to respond in a way that we've never seen before. As you can tell, we're really excited about Palantir's Meta Constellation and see it as the software that brings hundreds of satellites to bear on your hardest problems. Whether it's the anti-submarine warfare officer that I just described, using it to find submarines, or first responders leveraging AI to spot wildfire signs. Meta Constellation is there to empower users.
So we can see that there's so many use cases, and investors are going to start realizing this is a company that has amazing potential. And as it keeps delivering blockbuster earnings, and some of the fears that investors have that they need to track with customer concentration, customer count, the size of those customers, you know, the mix of those customers, be it commercial and defense, or government versus commercial. That's all, as these get alleviated, that's when the value will be obviously realized as people pile in. And Wall Street's not piled in yet, not yet. Oh, it's far, 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 far from it. The average analyst thinks it's a price target of anywhere between like $12 and $17. Like the average is 15. It's ridiculous. Only Goldman Sachs is like 30. I mean, good for Goldman, but you know, Goldman Sachs is better than most of those investment banks. So the point is that we're going to see a lot of buying pressure, but Alexander Karp, the CEO, is going to be selling down due to his tax liabilities as a result of exercising options that he is required to exercise as a sane, legal, human being. But at the end of the year, I see the stock turning around. I mean, not turning around; it's already kind of stabilized, but starting to really. People realize from the earnings reports there's something here. Of course, things might change. I'm not your financial advisor either. I'm just investing in the stock, and this is what I'm seeing. And if this helps you, hey, hit like and subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments. And if you have any other companies that you're interested in me to analyze, then I'm happy to look at those as well. Just give me a comment down below. I'll take a look at it. All right. Have a great day. Bye.